Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Bookends. He's Jason. I'm Chucky. This is our buddy Teaser. He's got a cool cap on today, but we'll get to that. So it's been a fun week. Last week we had the pro football draft. We had the Kentucky Derby, which was interesting. Another Baffert horse won. A lot of people were happy on that. Didn't think he was that special of a horse, but he ended up winning. Opened, I think, at 15-1, paid at 12-1. So a lot of happy campers on that. It was a fun day for Kentucky Derby at the $20,000 Twin Q. But draft day, we watched it together. Being Bears fans, I think we talked about it. Justin Fields going to the Bears. Yay, Bears! It was kind of a cool thing. But what do you think of the 5 quarterbacks and the kind of the teams they went to and what their impact will be to start the season? Jay?
Yeah, well, I mean, you talk about who's going to play and who's going to potentially have to sit around for a year or two before they get their shot. And obviously the guys at the top, we know Wilson and Lawrence are going to jump right in and get those starting gigs. Fields, we're assuming he's going to be the starting quarterback for the Bears. But
Fingers
he
crossed.
does have 2 veterans there, and the Bears may choose to give him a couple half a season or something like that to get himself ready. But obviously our odds on the rookie of the year,
that's what I was going to get to. That's why we're talking about
this.
Rookie of the year
is got him kind of that third favorite at 6-1, or tied for the third at 6-1. And the Mac Jones, what shot does he have to start? I don't know. Trey Lance, obviously the Niners go out there and make the big move up to the 3 to get that pick. But again, a Jimmy G, a capable NFL starter to give Lance a little bit of that time.
I make Lance
there.
a long shot. I mean, don't forget he opted out, so he hasn't been in a game for over a year. By the time the season starts, it'll be closer to a year and a half. He only threw 317 passes at the collegiate level, the fewest ever in the common draft era in 40 years for a quarterback that was drafted in the top 5. So I think from an experience standpoint at that next level and the speed of the game, it wouldn't surprise me if Jimmy G started and played the majority of the season and Lance just sat.
Yeah, and again, we have them as one of the top teams in the NFC, and it was really a team with the whole, everything going on with the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, that if there was a shift or that potential trade that was offered of the number 3 pick and Jimmy G going to the Packers, and the Packers the Niners acquiring Rodgers, would have really shifted the weight of the balance of the NFC, with the Niners becoming heavy favorites on the NFC side of things. So I think that we're still kind of being handcuffed here and what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. And
sure.
We've made some major adjustments to both the Broncos and the Raiders, as those are the 2 teams that are potential.
Those are the heavy rumors, right?
That he may go to those spots, and we'll see what happens. But we're kind of watching this hour by hour. We think that probably, and nothing's going to happen until I think that June 2nd date.
It's the dead cap money at that point. So although we're watching it, right, there could be a deal in principle or in place, but I don't think anything happens until early June, if it happens at all.
Yeah, because obviously that throws a lot of stuff in. We've taken down some of the over-under props on the Packers and the Broncos, some of the divisions. They're actually back open. We've just cut, obviously, if Rodgers leaves the Packers, the Vikings and Bears become much lower than if he stays in Green Bay. So, yeah, a lot of stuff going on there. And leaving the draft, obviously the quarterbacks kind of stole the show in the draft. But for me, it was about the kind of young wide receivers going to their college hookups.
Right.
We talked about Jamar Chase being somewhat of a long shot to go to Cincinnati, thinking that Cincinnati was really going to be looking at an offensive lineman. And sure enough, the LSU connection stays live in Cincinnati, and Burrow and Chase will be hooking up. And then we see the same thing happen down in Miami with
Waddle, right?
And then Devonta Smith goes to the Eagles, and we get to see Hurts to Devonta.
Watch for that prop, guys. We're working on that to see what hookup has the most touchdown passes.
The wide receivers to their quarterback connections in college, I think, is really, really cool, and kind of cheer for those guys to have some really good seasons. And you said it, we've been working on some props to put up and stuff like that. And the pick of the draft to me, and the guy that came out of the draft, who I think is going to end up being the best player, out of this year's draft class, is Kyle Pitts. I think he goes to a great situation in Atlanta.
And we've seen the most tickets written on him for Rookie of the Year so far. So we've seen those odds drop a little bit. But you're right, with Ridley and Julio Jones and Matt Ryan, it's a pretty dynamic offense.
Yeah, Yeah, and I think he's going to be a dynamic player, and I think that from those of you guys that are doing your fantasy drafts or your fantasy homework, I think between Kelsey and Kittle and Waller, I think you should have Pitts pretty high up on that tight end list.
I think it's interesting too because it's just speculation at this point on Rodgers. But if he does get dealt, start looking at both conferences a little bit, because if he gets dealt to Denver or the Vegas Raiders, you think about how the AFC is going to change. You now would have Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Aaron Rodgers all in the AFC. They can't all win the Super Bowl. And you look at the NFC right now, Drew Brees is retired. Russell Wilson, still some question marks there with that team and that offensive line. Brady just won it in Tampa. He's still not getting any younger. We know how tough it is to win, to repeat. God, you think about value now in the NFC. It really opens up the door for so many teams in the NFC, and the AFC becomes so much more competitive that you may get better prices on the Chiefs or the Ravens or Bills, because now Rodgers is there. And if Rodgers were to go to Denver, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant, Cortland Sutton, Williams, the kid from North Carolina, the running back, and Melvin Gordon with that defense, they're a really good team too. I think it becomes a kind of a 4-team race in the AFC right now at the top.
We've had this discussion, but I'll let you throw it out there. If Rodgers goes to Denver, are the Chiefs or the Broncos favored to win that division?
Really tough call. I'm going to stick with the Chiefs, but I think it's really close. Denver, if you look over the last 2 years, the team that lost the most games by one score is the Denver Broncos. So now you add the quarterback. That was the piece. You've got really young, talented skill position players. I know I just, mentioned those guys, but you can make a case that offense with Rodgers is as good as the Packer offense. And if that defense is healthy with Bradley Chubb, they drafted Surtain, and they signed Kyle Fuller in the offseason, that defense with Vic Fangio is really, really good. It's going to be interesting. Can you imagine those two teams playing it out? Both the Chiefs and Broncos, same division, and then you still got the Ravens and Bills. AFC would be mighty, mighty tough.
Yeah, and I the one thing I keep going back to is that Denver COVID year, Denver non-COVID year, when you get fans back in Mile High, much bigger home field advantage for the Broncos. And obviously the Chiefs, when they get their fans back in that stadium as well, bigger home field advantage there
I think it's a little bit like with Brady. When Brady left, he switched conferences, and he went to a team that had a pretty good defense, but you look at the skill position players that he inherited there. He had Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. They already had some really good wideouts there. I know they went out and got Antonio Brown, but I think Denver's the same way. Granted, they're a little bit younger. You don't have kind of that veteran wide receiver there. They're all young kids, but it is a talented bunch. I think that Bronco offense becomes pretty interesting to watch, and some fun props to put up in the AFC with those four guys.
Well, it'll be exciting to watch how this plays out. And again, value that's out there as we're having to watch Twitter and everything that we can find to stay on top of this. And so our betting public, that betting guest, is doing that same thing to see if they can get some great prices on these teams.
Personal opinion, I do not think that Aaron Rodgers takes another snap for the Green Bay Packers.
I'm hoping for it as a Chicago Bear fan, because I'm sick of losing to the Packers over and over again.
Same.
So maybe the Bears can find their way to the top of that division if there's a vacancy in Green Bay.
If he's dealt, who has the best quarterback position in the NFC North? I'm not sure. It has potential to be Justin Fields. Minnesota drafted Kyle Mund to be the replacement for Cousins. We don't know what's going to happen with Jared Goff. Jordan Love is a very young quarterback, but he really hasn't taken any snaps in meaningful games. I think that whole NFC North becomes wide open. So it's always fun to talk about, guys. But it's going to be interesting. So keep an eye on it as well, and look at the odds on all these teams in both conferences, because you might see some odds starting to raise a little bit because of a more competitive balance in both conferences. Real quick, we'll talk about the Derby too. Medina Spirit we have up. It's no again. It's minus 550. Yes, plus 375.
Yeah, to him to win the Preakness.
Preakness.
Again, essential quality, most likely not going to run in the Preakness. Baffert does have some other horses that are that challenge this, expecting anywhere from a 9 to 12 horse field to run in the Preakness. But he went off at 12-1 in the Derby. most likely going to be the favorite in this race. But again, somewhere in that 7-2 to 4-1 range is what we think that he's going to go off.
Yeah, last weekend we had the $10,000 Twin Q on Oaks Day and a $20,000 Twin Q on Derby Day. And just the atmosphere. It doesn't matter if you're a $2 bettor or a huge bettor. It's just being part of the spectacle. Mint juleps were served in all of our books, so it's kind of cool. So come check out Preakness Day. I think it's going to be a fun race day as well.
It was really an awesome atmosphere. I was obviously up at Red Rock on Saturday, and the crowd was fantastic, and the betting was fantastic, and we were getting a lot of people used to using the new kiosks. They were using the new kiosks to bet the race, and it was just a sea of people, obviously all somewhat social distanced and with their masks on. But what a great experience to kind of see the May 1st things kind of open back up, and great crowds. And so hopefully this horse can do pull some magic in the Preakness, and so we can have
the Belmont special,
that Triple Crown threat come mid-June.
And if we do, I mean, who knows what size the Twin Q might be for the Triple Crown. We've seen it before, pretty big. We're going to kind of jump over to hockey right now, and I mean, nothing's hotter than the Wild West. I mean, you look at the way the Knights are playing, and the Avs and the Wild. You've got three teams at the top right now, so close. We talked about how critical it was, I think, for Vegas to finish number one just because of their struggles with Minnesota. They did get a win, but they had lost 5 straight to Minnesota. It is really, really competitive with those three teams right now. There's a chance that Colorado could finish third, or Vegas could finish third. So it's really fun to watch those teams play. Vegas still has the tougher schedule of the three leading down the stretch. Had a big win last night, though, against Minnesota.
Yeah, we've got 4 to 5 games left for each team. Obviously, the Knights sitting on the top with the Avalanche 2, the Wild 3, and the Blues sitting in the 4-hole. Pretty much looking good in that 4-hole. It's going to be really, really tough for Arizona.
We play the Blues and the Avs.
Two games against the Blues. It's going to be tough to Arizona to get them. So right now the matchups would be Knights, Blues, and Avalanche, Wild, which is exactly what the Knights, the way they want to keep it and see it as hopefully the Avalanche and Wild can kind of beat each other up in that opening round series, and the Knights will be able to get through the Blues. But yeah, to finally get a win. They still haven't gotten a regulation win in Minnesota, but to get the overtime win after taking the 1-0 lead and giving up 2 quick goals in the third to go down and then tie it back up. But a big win there, and Minnesota's only 1 point behind the Avalanche for that 2-hole, although the Avalanche do have a game in hand. So this is going to be great down the stretch, and even better as we get into that playoff run to see who can come out of the West. And the Avalanche and the Knights are kind of sitting as our favorites in that Stanley Cup to win the championship. But the rest of the league has got outstanding finishes going on right now. I think the East is basically set with their 4. We've got Nashville and Dallas battling for a final spot in that 4-5
Three
hole.
of the 4 divisions are really competitive. I think the North is the only one that's not right now with Toronto. But you're absolutely right. It's really going to come down to those last
I think
5 games.
As of last night, Carolina still has the most points in the league, which would be a surprise if they finish kind of with that
really good
Cup.
team though, very good team. Both ends of the ice. So.
But yeah, the excitement obviously for us from a home fan standpoint, and what's going to happen.
More fans
coming out of the Avalanche with the Avalanche and the Wild down the stretch here has been great. And Handel's been absolutely fantastic, and we continue to grow the menu, push the menu on all Knights games, all hockey games, putting up a lot of guys to score goals, a lot of 3-ways, a lot of props. So continue to check the app for the vast growing hockey menu. And as we hit the playoffs, I anticipate it even going further with total goals scored by each team and a lot of stuff that we're adding to the menu on a daily basis.
Right. I think with hockey, it's so much fun to be able to add all that stuff, and especially being at Knights games where you can actually be on the mobile app and some of the in-play stuff and props that are on the board you can wager with as well. We're looking at potentially some viewing parties at a number of our proproperties, so a lot of cool stuff going on.
Well, at Red Rock, we've just turned Crimson into Crimson at Night, and
it's
a hockey-themed bar right there next to the cage, right next to the pool. So if you haven't had a chance to come into Red Rock and you're a Knight fan, the Crimson at Night is going to be really, really cool. Right. I saw some videos, and I walked in, and you kind of walk through those doors, and it's almost like you're walking on the ice.
It's awesome
with the way it's painted. So really, really cool to try out Crimson at Night at Red Rock.
Yeah, we've kind of talked about it here, like when the sun sets, it's nighttime, and do some events here at Sunset as well. So pretty cool stuff. We're going to talk about the NBA a little bit. It's really winding down there as well. You look at both conferences right now and the struggles of the Lakers, who may have to play one of the play-in games. It's going to be kind of fun. I mean, Phoenix has been red hot, as good as they play. I still kind of like the Clippers a little bit out west. Everybody's talking about, is it going to be Brooklyn and the Lakers? Are they going to be able to match up? But you don't know for sure. I mean, it's a Laker team, I think, if they're healthy. Once the playoffs start, it's kind of a different team. They can kind of hit that next level like the Bulls did in their runs, but they're not really healthy, and it's going to be interesting to see if they have to play the play-in game. It's that many more games for LeBron to have to play. We'll see.
Well, but playing that many more games might not be bad, as they might need a couple games to shake some of this rust off and get a couple more games on the court. And they're sitting in the 6 hole, I think, as we speak today, and there's a really tight battle for about 5, 6, 7
right, yep.
There, and then obviously some a little bit of a drop off till we get to the what's going to be the 8, 9, 10 battle that teams are fighting for there. On the East, we talked about that. We thought it was Brooklyn and no one else. And I will tell you that we have seen a significant amount of money in the last several days on both the Atlanta Hawks and the Philadelphia 76ers. And the Sixers are sitting, in that 1 seed.
The Knicks are playing really well too.
Knicks are in the 4 hole. But a lot of money in Atlanta, a lot of money in Philadelphia. Again, at some pretty good prices and some value there, obviously, as those
That's
teams,
the key, right? Yeah.
Those teams aren't favored to win the conference, and we're still talking about it being the Nets and the Bucks, who had a couple really, really great games this week. And I think one of the things that I've noticed in the NBA over the past 5 or 6 days, the scoring is through the roof. I mean, if you go look at some of the scores and seeing teams score in the 140s and 150s per night, and some of these scores have been 260, 270, and 280. So some trend here in these last 2 weeks that playoff teams, non-playoff teams, and we're seeing a ton of scoring go on. So something to look for from your handicapping angle on who's playing defense this last week and who's not.
I think to your point about the money on the Hawks and Sixers, just like we want to be in a position to win on every team in the future book, I think that's what bettors look for. They look for the value there with teams that are playing well heading into the postseason. And really, you look at Philadelphia and Atlanta, and I think the East is kind of open, and you had high prices, or we had high prices on there, and it becomes kind of value, and that's why we've seen so much money on those teams to win it all.
Yeah, and again, just like we're doing in hockey, the props, we've been growing each and every night on guys' number of points, rebounds, and assists. So the Hub team has really, really been focused on expanding that wagering menu, offering more props, doing a lot of stuff, and we're doing the same thing from a baseball standpoint. The team has been doing an exceptional job. They've introduced some new head-to-head total base props with guys. Obviously, we still have the home run props, the pitching props on total strikeouts, but the wagering menu, again, continuing to grow and adapt into more offerings each and every day. So if get on the app, get in the book, and baseball fans especially, there's a lot of individual player props for you to bet on kind of head-to-head in each game.
And baseball now has completed their first month. And you're still seeing a lot of parity. We're still seeing a lot of those dogs. You look at every division right now, and they're starting to right-size themselves a little bit with the teams at the top, but you still got 2 big surprises. I think you look at Kansas City, who's above 500 and right there with Cleveland and the White Sox. For me, the biggest surprise is out west, though. Early in the season, we talked about the Dodgers and Padres, how dominant they were. Every night, we'd be rooting against them. It's always a good night for us when those teams go down. Dodgers have really struggled of late, just got swept by the Cubs. But it's a different team that's on top in the West, and it's the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah, not expected to be there at all. The pitching staff's been absolutely fantastic. McGee on the back end has been really, really good, and you've kind of had a resurgence in their old men in the middle of that lineup, and Longoria and Buster Posey have been absolutely playing fantastic. We'll see how long they can keep this rolling. Obviously, the Padres and Dodgers.
Keep it up, boys.
The Dodgers are fighting some injury bug, and obviously.
But a lot of teams are. I mean, you look at DeGrom's been hurt. There's a lot of teams that have kind of gone through. And Springer hasn't played much. Yelich hasn't played much. So a lot of teams are missing some of their big stars right now.
Yeah, and I'll say, if you ask me, my biggest surprise, and there's kind of. It's a 3-headed monster for me. Number one is the Boston Red Sox. This team was expected to finish near the bottom of the East with the Yankees and Rays.
Don't forget how they started
on
too.
Top. Boston's been playing great. It doesn't look like there's an end. They have a good pitching staff. They've got the closer in Barnes, and that lineup is hitting the baseball. So Boston, I think, is going to stay there. I don't think they're going to fall.
Chris Sale may be back at some point, and being able to add an arm like that, if he's healthy, just kind of changes that whole rotation.
The Oakland A's, again, another team that had a kind of a rough start to the season, but it has really right-sided, and if I bring up Ramon Laureano and how he's been hitting.
Sore subject.
But no, they've been playing great, good pitching.
Right.
They've got kind of a bullpen by committee going on there, but the Angels have struggled. Houston's struggled. Houston's really seeing when they go on the road, in particular
Birds?
this week in New York, having to go through some fan base return and taking it out on the Astros for their scandal. But the last one for me is the Atlanta Braves, and that's not on the good side; that's on the bad side.
Right.
The Phillies are leading that division. The Mets are playing well, with the fact that DeGrom's missed a couple starts.
And Lindor has really struggled. Really struggled.
Atlanta is just not clicking right now. That lineup is absolutely loaded. They put d'Arnaud on the IL, so they do have a little bit of an injury from their catcher. But they just haven't been the Braves that we kind of expected. I think Freeman's got 7 or 8 home runs, but Acuna and Albies and some of those guys. It's somebody's doing it on
Freeman,
every given night,
yeah,
but they're not able to put it. They haven't been able to put it together, and so that's a team that I look. Again, we talk about. At the end of the day, the Dodgers are going to be there. We think this Brave team is going to be there. The Yankees are starting to play a little bit better after kind of the kind of little swoon that they went through. But man, baseball's been exciting, and from a Chicago standpoint, watching our Cubs kind of sweep out the Dodgers this week was good. And on the south side of Chicago, they've seen big injuries with Eloy Jimenez and Roberts going down. So and they're at the top of that division.
I think if you look at a team that might be active at the trade deadline, or maybe even prior to, looking to land that big star as a rental, it might be the White Sox.
Well, we talked about it today that there could be a Chicago
North side to South side
Chicago swap, and we'll see if the Cubs decide to move Chris Bryant, who's had an excellent start to the season. I think he's got 9 home runs as we sit here today, so he's come out of the box really well, and that's what the Cubs needed. Either going to decide to re-sign him, or they're going to go out and let him be a rental for somebody else to finish off this season. Is making that postseason run.
I think he gets dealt. I really think he gets dealt, and I think Rizzo and Baez end up getting the new deals for the Cubs. It's just personal opinion.
Yeah, and the White Sox, again, that's a great lineup with some really, really good pitching, and these are 2 bad injuries. I don't think Jimenez or Roberts are going to be back by the end of the season, so they've got to replace some 2 really good young bats. So the Chris Bryant proposed deal that's out there really does make a lot of sense.
Yep, totally agree. So guys, we've talked about all this stuff. So now you guys that already have the STN Sports app, all this stuff is on there, as Jay mentioned, all the increased props, all the cool stuff, especially with both basketball and hockey playoffs coming up, all this cool stuff we're putting up for rookies in football, putting up more stuff for football each and every day. But if you don't have the STN mobile app, get signed up now with all this stuff going on. Up to $100 bonus. And if you deposit $50, you get one of those cool hats that Teaser's wearing right now. A lot of guests have been wearing these around. They love them. We've got other gifts coming up throughout the summer and leading up into football season. But a $50 deposit and your STN mobile account to open up a new account, you get one of those STN caps. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the other, we don't a lot of times touch on some of the other sports, but obviously golf. We got the PGA Championship coming up here. I think it starts May 20th.
Next year's Masters up.
2 weeks away. Yeah, we just opened up the Masters. Huge MMA cards between UFC and pro fight leagues, and a lot of boxing that's coming up. Canelo Alvarez fighting this weekend. So a lot of stuff on the board. And again, every single time we have these events, we're trying to give you as much as we can from that prop angle. So whether it's the hockey, the basketball, or the hockey or baseball, we're going to try and do the same thing in golf and MMA, and really expand that menu and give you as many different prop options and different ways to bet the fights and bet the rounds and all that type of stuff. So get the app, check out those sports, and we're going to continue to push the envelope on the offerings on our sports.
Absolutely. We want you guys to get signed up for the app. We love when you guys come out to the rooms too and to our books and experience everything we have to. We're adding more kiosks at all of our properties as well. Skip the line. It's so convenient, guys, to use the kiosks. They're situated around the book, a few strategically placed property-wide. So it's just another great option to wager. So a lot of stuff going on, as Jay mentioned. Get signed up right now. He's Jason. I'm Chucky. That's our buddy Teaser wearing that cool STN mobile cap. Don't forget a $50 deposit now for new signups. You get that cap. We'll see you guys next week.